Hey, it's me. There I am. There's my name. Jesse's a master at this. I get to do this solo this week. Due to technical difficulties, we will be switching programs. That means hopefully next week I can bring you back Cassie. But in the weeks that I was not available for this lovely podcast, I hope you enjoyed our very own Leanne and Cassie, not me. So Cassie, not being visible on the screen, sent me over what I'm supposed to talk about. So I'll run solo. Here we go. So story number one, main feature on the main site. Joe Matthews wrote a great piece about franchising. Is that on the bottom?
Yeah.
That's great. What's the big smile about, Jesse?
Because it says Nick and Cassie.
Well, Cassie, what do you think about this? You know, it happens. So Joe wrote a piece about his take from the IFA Convention. There's a lot of similarities in probably what I would say, which is good that we're aligned on that. Bottom line, franchise brands are still trying to find leads. Shocking. They're still trying to find deals. Shocking. So nothing has really changed in the previous years of IFA. But big takeaway still is how do I get in front of the right buyers? Here's my advice to you. I can see what our wonderful stock market is doing above your area. And here's the truth. So in a good economy, franchise brands need to behave opposite of how other businesses would operate. And historically, this doesn't work out very well because franchise brands panic just like anybody else panics. But the reality is the middle manager ends up being such an important part of the franchise pipeline because they are the ones who are comfortable when the job market is stable and uncomfortable when layoffs get presented their way. They also, as a middle manager, are most likely not creators, and that's exactly what you want as a franchise brand. So you want the ability to be able to take someone who is not a creator and put them into your system so that they follow your system. The middle manager is typically that target because they've built up a little bit of net worth, and now they're looking for what can they do to protect the earnings that they brought in. Call them somewhere in the mid to late 40s. Now, in a good economy, they're stable. They stay in their jobs. This is why, in my opinion, the bulk of franchise buyers has not changed that much over the last few years because the economy has been good. They're sitting comfortably behind their desks. Now, what's going to happen with coronavirus news and oil prices and uncertainty with futures is it might create a little bit of uncertainty. And obviously we're in a presidential year as well. So if this creates some shakiness, my advice to you, franchisor, is you don't scale back your budgets at that point. You actually scale them up. I think we can look at examples of big brands that came out of 2008 and 2009. Those are the ones that said we are saving up for the rainy day and we're going to spend those dollars to get in front of the buyer when everybody else is backing up. So for franchise brands, you should be going against the grain. So when things are good, definitely have stable budgets. When things go bad, increase your budget. That is my best advice. You want to take off as a brand, that's how you do it. In today's time, though, there's a few other factors you need to know about. And look, I have the benefit of not having Cassie here to shut me off. But in today's time, you have to understand that the way that brands get introduced to prospects is more organic than you think. It's happening in real time, but it's at the buyer's decision. They're the ones that are doing their homework. They're the ones that are doing the research. They're the ones that are getting in front of the brand on their own versus in previous years, buyers may have gone to a franchise expo or thumbed through an entrepreneur magazine or gone to a franchise portal to figure out what opportunity makes sense for them. That still happens in some sense, but then they go and do their homework around the web. It is a much more user-friendly world than ever before. So understanding that, and that's a takeaway of conversation from the IFA conference, understanding the way that the buyer behavior is shifting should set you up for success. Next story, we had a story about McDonald's canceling their global franchise conference. I think this was an interesting move. They're moving it to a virtual conference. Interesting. listening to this from some of our clients too on what should they do about upcoming conferences. Some are backing out of things like the multi-unit show because they're fearful of coronavirus and they're being cautious. I understand it. I don't know what direction people are going to lean towards. Are you more conservative when it comes to travel and exposure? Are you more liberal in your approach to this? But McDonald's said, hey, rather than pulling everyone together and having any risk associated with our franchisees who end up being their strongest assets because they're operating their business, they canceled their conference. Interesting move, in my opinion, right decision. Power rankings this week. I have not peeked, but here we go. Sylvan Learning Center 1, Eggs Up Grill 2, Big Blue Swim School 3, Hand and Stone 4, Amazing Lash is 5. So you take those 5 brands, again, for those of you at home that are looking for an idea of brands that are trending, and again, fully disclosed, these are brands that are engaged on 1851's platform. So it's not across all brands across the web, but this gives you a glimpse into some of the categories that people are connecting well with. So education, once again, right at the forefront of our list. Heating up this week, I wrote about, let's see. I wrote about don't incorrectly diagnose your issues as financial versus engagement. So the clock has started, maybe? Yep. Okay, so I think oftentimes when we have trouble spots in our business, we point to them being financial issues, or financial ends up being the indicator of what we're looking at. So that can mean dips in sales, client loss, lack of return visitors, whatever that indicator ends up being, that ends up causing us some fear or some uncertainty, and we blame everything on the fact that our sales are going down. My argument, or the reverse of that, is that maybe financial is not your issue. Maybe it's an engagement issue, because you got to understand, majority of businesses, unless you're online only with no labor that touches the consumer, most businesses are built from people. So if the engagement is low of your team, that can ultimately have impact on what you're trying to accomplish as a company. So in this week's column, I'm encouraging you, the brand that's saying, oh my God, I'm stressed because of the financial side. Don't just point to the obvious, dig a little bit deeper, look at the engagement that's behind it, because you might have some other indicators worth looking at that maybe the engagement of your audience is not fully bought into what you're trying to accomplish. Franchise buyers buy for the exact same reasons. It doesn't change. I believe in the vision, the product, the cost to get in, and how much I can make makes sense. I can open in the territory I want, and validation is sound. Like, those end up being pretty consistent across the board. And you look at each of those, that the only category that is financial is how much it costs to get in, how much I can potentially make. The rest of them are actually engagement things. So you think about the way that people buy things, whether that's a franchise or something else, and you think about the way that they look at motivation. The reality is that engagement piece ends up being the most important part of growing a business, both internally and externally. So my wisdom of the week, my frant, is just examine that. Look at the engagement inside, and there's great tools out there like Franchise Business Review. Their surveying does awesome to give you at least some understanding of your engagement level. And if that's a miss, then at least you understand the indicators and gives you a shot to fix what may be broken. I'm going to end that early. How much time do I have left on there?
22 seconds.
Cool. You see, if Cassie was on here, I would have kept on rolling. But no Cass, no roll. I'll leave you with this. We are in the midst of probably the more challenging time that we've seen in a few years. Head up. Every crisis that has happened, whether that was bird flu or swine flu, or Zika or West Nile, there is a beginning, middle, and end, and it will get through it. The world will get through it. And most likely at the end of this rainbow, there'll be plenty of franchise brands still wanting to make deals get done. So nothing's really going to change from the way that we look at things within our business communities. So keep forward, be patient, and be conscious. I can tell you this as an indicator. I'm looking at leads across many different platforms. And February was a rough month when there's other fears that are hitting human beings. Buying a franchise does not go front and center. So understand this, be sympathetic to it, be conscious of it, and stay the course. This year is going to be a long year. An election coming up, and that's going to determine some of the pathways forward. So yeah, think about that. Think about that as you trek through this crazy time. Anyway, for Cassie, wherever she is, I'm Nick. We'll see you next week, hopefully with both of us back on the podcast. See ya.